You're listening to Spectrum on 105.9 WJZW Woodbridge, Washington. I'm Thomas Grooms, and joining us in studio this morning, Mr. Michael Stevens from the Michael Stevens Project. Founding member of the Blackbyrds, Keith Killgo, is with us, and the legendary Gary Duncan, guitarist and a founding member of Quicksilver Messenger Service, joining us this morning in the studio for a rare special occasion. And Rock Creek Park is hosting 30 years of Doing It in the Park with a concert featuring the Blackbyrds, Ghostbusters, Ray Parker Jr., and the Michael Stevens Project, August 26th in Washington. We'll be talking about Rock Creek Park and all the fun and entertainment that we've had there over the years, over the 30 years. Gary Duncan's in town and heading up to Pennsylvania to play with Quicksilver Messenger Service for their 40th anniversary tour, and also joining his old bandmate David Freiberg with Jefferson Starship, and then they're heading up to New York City. But without further ado, Michael, Keith, Gary, good morning. Welcome back to Spectrum.
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
It's good to be back.
Yo, Tom.
Good morning, Gary. You know, the tune we just played, Wolf Run Part 1, is your composition.
I think so.
A lot of people call and say, you know, what tribe does that music, Keith? You know, they want to know what tribe it is that does the Spectrum theme.
Listen, I'm a Pawnee.
Pawnee Indian.
Skiddy Pawnee.
That tune goes back to, what, 1970? You did that over in Hawaii?
Yeah, we did it in Hawaii, and I think it was 70. I mean, it's hard to remember now, but I think it was in 70, yeah.
Well, we have embraced that as our Spectrum theme over the years, and thank you so much for doing it, you and Dino.
Yeah, we did that together one morning without any sleep.
Well, Gary, you have a new record out called 3 in the Side, and I've noticed, and you got to dig this, Keith, Mike, he does Marvin Gaye's Inner City Blues. He does, what, 33 minutes and 32 seconds worth, part 1 and 2?
Well, no, it's not part 1 and 2. It's 2 different takes. You know?
What is this all about?
Well, that's just, that's 2 different takes of the same tune. It's kind of like Monk used to play. You can play the same song twice and it don't sound the same. And then I think in the middle between them is around midnight.
That's right. You finally did the Thelonious Monk tune. You put it on CD.
Yeah, and I've got about 5 more versions of it that are all different that are going to be coming out, you know, in the next year or so. But I think I did that one with just me and piano.
It was 10 years ago. You and Keith were in the studio, and we did the Whamma tribute to Link Ray. You put a band together with some of the old Link Raymen and played the Birchmere, and then you played, I believe, the Hilton, or didn't you? One of the hotels. The Sheridan. But Keith, I know you're excited with Michael Stevens because 30 years of Doing It in the Park. You played in Rock Creek Park over those 30 years, didn't you?
Yeah.
The Blackbyrds are back?
Blackbyrds are alive and well. Kojo, the original Blackbyrds, the original members are Orville Saunders and Joe Hall and myself. And we've added some new musicians to it. Antonio Parker on saxophone, Juanita Williams on vocals, and you know, we just been doing different things. And somebody said, "Hey, man, you know, you guys, it's been 30 years. Really, 30 years? Well, okay, let's do this." So there was threats that Kevin Toney was going to be playing with Ray Parker, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it. But that would have really been a good thing. But yeah, 30 years, man. I grew up right up the street from Rock Creek Park. I wrote the hook for the song. We were in Camden, New Jersey. I was playing bass. I wasn't playing drums on it. And just, you know, goofing around at a sound check and just came up with a groove.
We've had a lot of fun in Rock Creek Park over the years. I remember Bruce Springsteen played that venue in '75 when he was just coming up, right before Born to Run. Many people have played, Judy Collins, The Temptations, Arlo Guthrie, Ohio Players. And Mike Stevens is with us, and he's a mainstay here at Smooth Jazz 105.9. He was with us back in 1994 when we went on the air, and he's done many after-work parties and recorded a couple of CDs over the years.
There you go.
Your latest project, Michael, is what?
Half Past Autumn.
And tell us a little bit about this, Half Past Autumn.
Well, of course, my partner, Dejanel Boykin, and I co-wrote the CD, most of the songs. It came out actually in '99, but it's been selling like hotcakes. I mean, ever since they hit the streets, and we can't keep them in hand. They just keep selling. So we're glad to come back, and especially out at the Carter Baron. If you remember, just a few years ago, we opened for Grover Washington Jr. Unfortunately, the year before he passed away, and it was exciting to be on the stage with that man. I mean, his presence is just so awesome. But Glad to be back here in the studio with you again, Tom.
Oh, good to see you, Mike. And I remember Grover played the Birchmere also before he
Yes.
passed. I had the honor and the pleasure of bringing him on stage, and I'll never forget that evening. You, of course, from Pennsylvania. Gary's heading up to Pennsylvania to play, right, Gary, in the next couple of days?
Yeah, we're going to Sellersville, I think, on the 10th. Starship's playing the 9th, and we're playing the 10th, and then we're going on to New York to B.B. King's for 2 nights. And then after that, my memory just totally blanks. We're going somewhere, I think Long Island, for a couple shows, then back out to the West Coast, and then I think we're going to Europe after that. But I'm just along for the ride, you know.
Quicksilver Messenger Service has a legacy and a history. This is the 40th anniversary tour, so we're thinking 1966. You guys started the band. You were right there at the very beginning, I guess, when the whole San Francisco scene was coming alive, psychedelic music. And Michael, I've told Keith this before, Gary played at Monterey Pop, jammed with Jimi Hendrix, Jorma Kaukonen. What a festival, huh?
It was the best of all of them, actually. You know, I've been to a lot of those big shows, you know, those outdoor festivals, and out of all the ones I've ever been to, that one was magical. You know, and a lot of people that played there weren't alive 3 years later. You know, Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and I got to see Otis Redding, and I got to hear Ravi Shankar, which was really something. When he played on Sunday, that was incredible, you know. But we were so scared when we were kids. We played a real short 15-minute set and got off the stage and let the big guys play. But it was, it opened my eyes.
But the band itself, Quicksilver Messenger Service, stood for improvisation, you know, all the time. You never knew what you were going to play, and you had all these jazz acts playing with you during the 1960s. Talk a little bit about that, some of your fondest memories at the Fillmore.
Well, I got to see some of the greatest players, you know, blues and jazz players that mostly are like no longer with us, you know, that Bill Graham brought to the Fillmore. And we got to open for a lot of acts, and it was, I wouldn't know where to start, you know. Saw Miles at the Fillmore, and Muddy Waters, and The Wolf. You know, in fact, we did a whole week open, you know, and with Wolf, and that was a great memory for me.
You had told us once upon a time when you were on the East Coast, you opened up for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. Yeah, but I'm glad we opened and we didn't have to follow them.
I'm sure.
Well, on the 26th of August, what are we in store for, Keith, as we celebrate 30 years of doing it in the park?
Just that. Just still doing it in the park. You know, it's good to play the music under these circumstances where we can play it like we want to play it. And we actually play better now than we played then, because we could really probably not even play half of the songs that we had recorded. But everybody's matured, and we've been able to incorporate some young folk into the fold and give them some kudos for being in there, and kind of the legacy of Howard University and where it all started and where it all came from. Always keeping that in mind, because you know, you never forget your roots, where you're from. And it's also a great chance to see people that have not seen us, or I have not seen personally since like high school or whatever. People are going to be coming out of the woodworks, and it's supported, you know, by the local government. We're getting a proclamation from one of the officials for 30 years of Rock Creek Park. But I as a band, I feel honored that, you know, they still know who you are, because in this business, you know, it's you know, you're here today and gone tomorrow. So that song has lasted, and I've always, the joke has always been, can somebody tell me what the bridge is? So, you know, you'll get that when you get home.
You're listening to Spectrum on 105.9 WJZW. If you just joined us in studio this morning, Mr. Michael Stevens from the Michael Stevens Project. Keith Killgo's here, founding member of the Blackbyrds, and Gary Duncan, guitarist and founding member of Quicksilver Messenger Service. And our focus, August 26th, 30 years of doing it in the park, Rock Creek Park. We have a concert that'll take place featuring the Blackbyrds. Michael Stevens will be playing. Ray Parker Jr. is bringing his band. And what are we in store for when the MSP hits the stage, Mike?
Nothing but excitement. As I said, we've been there once before, opening for Grover, so it's even more of a pleasure opening up for the Blackbyrds and Ray Parker Jr. I mean, both these groups have always been my idol, so I'm only be glad to be in their presence.
As you travel around the country, Gary, you've seen the devastating effects of Hurricane Katrina. It's almost been a year. Along the Gulf Coast, of course, they were hit there. What are musicians saying that migrate out to California after they leave New Orleans? What are they saying to you?
Well, they're just glad to be out of New Orleans, for one thing, and wishing they could go back. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if New Orleans is going to ever be what it was. Hopefully it will, because that was the seat of jazz in this country, as far as I know. And a lot of people have been displaced and homeless, and it's a terrible thing. And hopefully they can restore that music scene back to what it used to be, because I can remember I'd love to go play New Orleans just so I could go out and listen to the bands, But hopefully it'll come back together and they won't have another hurricane.
What about your memories of New Orleans, Keith?
Oh, many. One of my roommates from college moved there, and a guy that I wrote a song with called Love Don't Strike Twice, Alvin Alexander, is from there. We played some really wonderful clubs there. I met Clive Davis, many people in New Orleans. The devastation to me it was horrible, and it still is, and it's going to be for a long, long time. I just hope that, the people who sacrificed their lives for this whole thing were able to at least leave a mark that, as a country, we need to be ready for whatever's going to happen, and have some systems in place that can help get these people out there and get aid to them and help to them. Going back, rebuilding neighborhoods. Harriet Connick Jr., I think, has bought a whole section of town, and he's building the houses, and people are doing stuff, and they're trying to get that back. But I think what will never die is the flavor and the history. You can put water on it, but it'll still grow. So I believe there's a great future ahead.
What about you, Michael? What are your feelings about everything that happened to the music industry in New Orleans after Katrina?
Well, it's definitely been devastated by Katrina. And I have to kind of take Keith on this. We can only hope that some sort of system is put in place to prevent this sort of devastation from happening ever again.
Well, here in Washington, as you know, we're trying to rebuild the Anacostia area, and there's a lot of issues on the table with baseball now in Washington, the Nationals. A lot of people are driven out of their homes. We're learning the word gentrification. Mm-hmm. But it's time for the kids, it's time for the parents to step up to the plate. Mentors are needed. You know this in our own neighborhood here in Washington, or we're going to have a lot of problems. And gang violence seems to be on the top of the list today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Keith Gary's been working with the kids, doing adventures in music at Terrell Junior High School. Mm-hmm. Can you give us an update how we're doing?
Well, it's a slow system that is going to grind its way to where it's trying to go. If the parents of these children that I teach, are not proactive, not taking a stance, not able to get in there and actually change some of these policies, they're just going to get whatever they give them. Right now they're trying to clean that neighborhood out. They're trying to restructure it because they want to put, $500,000 condominiums across the street from the school, and then they displace the children. So, but if the parents don't stand up and do what they have to do to stop it, it'll just continue to go. And I think some of these things that have happened recently are wake-up calls. Like, hey, it is time to smell the coffee, folks, and put some things in place so that the government won't just assume that you're with this program. You have schools consolidating, educational systems collapsing, money going all misappropriated to all the wrong places, and the kids are the ones who are getting hurt, and they're the ones that you're going to be sticking you up or doing whatever to you out here in the street later on, and they're seeing the results of that right now. Stabbings are up in this town. It's the weapon of choice now. They're not shooting anybody, but they're stabbing people, cutting people, all this kind of thing. So I'm just the government and the parents and the teachers and everybody that has an opportunity to have a voice needs to have one, and they need to be there for the meetings. They need to be there for the conferences. They need to be there for the PTA, back to schools, blah, 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 and have some agenda that we're trying to put in place versus the government doing it for you.
Yeah, I have to go along with that completely. You can't just sweep it under the rug because it's not going to go away. It's something that's going on, and it's until the parents and the neighborhood stand up and take a stand on what the government is doing about that. I mean, it's just going to continue.
Also, we're faced with environmental issues, and Gary, as you reflect back 40 years ago, 1966, you were down in Golden Gate Park doing be-ins and love-ins and playing with Quicksilver Messenger Service. We had warned people, especially on Earth Day, I think around 1970 was the first Earth Day here in Washington, and here we are 36 years later. Global warming is an issue. The late Rick Danko brought that up in 1999 when Ron and I visited him. He said, we've got to do something about this global warming, and he died in 1999. 6 years have passed. What's going on in San Francisco? Is it washing away, eroding out there?
Well, I don't live in San Francisco. I live in Richmond, which is across the bay, East Bay, and which is, I believe, the murder capital of the United States. More murders in Richmond, California than any other city.
Wow.
And 2 weeks ago, like, there were 9 or 10 people killed in one day, just random shootings, you know, and probably by people who were missing the target and hitting innocent bystanders, kids. I mean, there was a lady on TV who had lost her husband, both of her children, within like a week, you know, for no reason. Senseless violence that's because there's no, well, for instance, there's no music in the schools. They've taken the music out of the schools, and they've taken away just about every kind of creative, you know, thing that you could possibly get in school to give children an outlet for all that energy you have when you're young. And so consequently, what we're dealing with out there is just gangs of, like, you know, shooters killing each other. And so it's not even safe to go out of your house anymore where I live. And as far as the environment's concerned, in California, I don't really see anything being cleaned up. You know, not that it won't be, but I don't know. It's sometimes I don't even like to watch the news because it's always something bad. And hopefully, you know, maybe the next administration will, you know, take a different outlook on it. But the wetlands, what used to be considered wetlands, are no longer considered wetlands. Now they're building houses on them. Mm-hmm. And they're just building so many houses on everything, and they're squashing all these people together, low-income people, with very little chance of having jobs. And you have like 5 or 6 generations of people that have lived on welfare and have no other way to live. And crime is the only thing you can turn to. You know, if they had music or any kind of art or any kind of, like, you know, just encouragement to be other than that, it would help. But unfortunately in California, it's been going down.
But going back 36 years ago, if you reflect, What About Me came out from Quicksilver Messenger Service, and I think you hit the nail on the head. You asked the question, what about me? What about the environment? What about the war? And here we are, 36 years later. What went into that tune, Gary? What were you thinking when you guys put that together?
Well, it just was a song that we wrote because at the time we had the same problem. Only now it's just been exacerbated to the point where it's like overwhelming. And, you know, we were never particularly a protest organization. I never protested anything. I don't think it really does that much good. I think people would be better off, instead of protesting, to just do something about it. You know, vote or whatever it takes, or like Keith's doing, trying to help kids in the schools. And, you know, I've got 6 boys, you know, and there's 3 of them still at home, and that's a hard enough job for me just to keep them from getting in trouble, you know. And so we wrote the song a long time ago, and at the time things were a lot better than they are now, you know. So I don't know if it helped or not, but I think if you listen to the song, it's still current.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
It stands the test of time. Even Fresh Air stands the test of time, right, gentlemen? Yeah. And he was right on the same page with DC's own homeboy Marvin Gaye when he did Inner City Blues, the ecology song. And Gary has brought that tune to the forefront once again with 3 to a Side. Tell us a little bit about the concept here.
Well, that was just studio cuts that we did where, you know, we just go in and play. You know, we don't really have arrangements. We would just go in and we played 3 in the Side is 3 tunes. And it's two versions of Inner City Blues, which was a tune that we always used to play instrumentally. And every time we play it, it was totally different. And then, so we put two different versions of that together that are totally different, and put Around Midnight in the middle, which is for me to get to play Around Midnight on a record. You know, I didn't expect to get a lot of airplay. You know, but I like the version that we did of it, and I've got a few more versions of Around Midnight that I'm going to put out over the years. You know, because that's another one of those songs that every time you play it, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Well, it was 10 years ago that you and Keith and all of us were around the microphone, and you said you were going to do Monks Round Midnight. You said, or Crisscross, you were going to do something, and we had the guys in from the Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz here in Washington, and I told them what Gary was doing in San Francisco. They said they were going to hit the website and check you out and see what you were doing. And when you were here in 96, you had an album out, a double album called Shapeshifter, and you've kind of modified that over the years. You have Shapeshifter re-released or reissued. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, originally Shapeshifter was a 2 CD set, and so I put that out again in single, you know, Volume 1, Volume 2, and then when I had a recording studio for 20 years, that because of 9/11 and the economy and whatever happened, I ended up losing my studio, but I had all of these tapes. You know, we had about 800 hours of music that I'd recorded, so we went through it all, and I discovered all these old original demos that I'd made for Shapeshifter that I liked better than what I ended up with, you know. So I put those on Volume 3, and then Volume 4 is all instrumental stuff that we did. So we made 4 volumes now. It's like Shapeshifter Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 3 in the side, and then there's another one that's out now called Strange Trim. Let me see. I've got 14 altogether that we just reissued or put out. A lot of them are new.
And they're available online?
They're available online at QuicksilverMessengerService.com. There's a couple of live albums, and there's going to be about 3 more live shows that we recorded in late 1999 and 2000, you know. And so a total of 14 now, and probably when I'm finished, about 18 CDs worth of stuff, you know. So if you want to listen to me play for 18 CDs worth, you could like just knock yourself out.
And the Blackbyrds have some new repackaging done over the last time. I mean, since you've been in over the 10 years, you have the greatest hits, a couple of different volumes out.
Yeah, we did. Well, they kept repackaging actually the same songs, but I released a record last year. Well, I re-released it called This World, and on it is just a kind of a timeline of all the music that I've played over the last almost 10 years, and it's got the late great Joe Henderson on it, Donald Byrd on it, Oscar Brown Jr., Larry Coryell, Javon Jackson. So, and that's actually doing quite well on, you know, Radio Directs or whatever, and it's, you know, CD Baby, CD Now, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we recorded a record in 2002 in London, and actually some of the live tracks from the London gig, we were in Edinburgh, Scotland, sorry, and we put those, so I put a couple of tracks on there. It's called the Kojo Blues. And then we did a house thing of an old song that I had written called Mysterious Vibes, which actually, believe it or not, went to #1 in house music, whatever that means, in London. And so, you know, Fantasy was bought by Concord Jazz. So I have no idea what's going on right now to any repackaging. The good part is that, you know, one day soon this year, before the end of the year, I will get a lot of the tracks back that I recorded, that I wrote, that were unpublished and unrecorded. So I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I just want them back, you know. So.
Well, I hope you put them out so we can hear them.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
And Michael, you've been working hard. As you said, you kind of remastered Half Past Autumn, right?
A lot of the folks have been demanding from our first CD, actually, basically speaking, as well. But Half Past Autumn has been doing very well. Surprisingly enough, folks just don't want to forget it, and I'm glad to hear that.
You're a very unique player. You have a serious horn that you play. Gary, this thing is bad that he plays and brings to the concerts. What is that horn called exactly that
It's
you
a
play?
Selmer. It's just black lacquered with trim with gold.
Tenor?
Alto.
Alto.
Right.
And Gary, on Shapeshifter, the personnel is stellar. You have Greg Arrico, original drummer from Sly and the Family Stone, with you. Who else is on the CD?
Bobby Vega's playing bass. Michael Lewis is playing keyboards. I got Norbert Stachel on horn, and Kathy McDonald on vocals, Linda Imperial on vocals, Kim Cataluna on vocals, me on vocals, me on guitar. David Freiberg's on it, and the guy, the harp player from War,
Lee Oscar.
Oh,
Lee Oscar plays a harp solo on one of the tunes that he did it in one take. I just said, Lee, why don't you throw a track on here? And he just I played it in the overhead speakers, and he played through a little Fender amp with his harp, and it's beautiful harp solo through one of the tunes on there, So there's a lot of people on it, because that's a culmination of a few years of work that, at the last minute I decided, well, I better get this on a disc before it goes away or they take me away or something. So we put out as much as we could get on 2 discs, and then recently I put the rest of it on the second 2.
Well, Close Enough for Jazz is definitely a favorite here at Smooth Jazz 105.9, and Noel Santos plays that on the brunch Sunday morning. Is there a story to Close Enough for Jazz, how you wrote that tune?
No, not really. I mean, songs just come to you when they do, and you just have to be awake. And they usually happen to you real early in the morning when you haven't had any sleep. Yeah, I never sit down and attempt to write a song. I just, if it comes, it comes. That's the way all those songs are.
I'm a believer in impromptu. Duke Ellington was very famous for writing arrangements and then getting into the studio and just totally changing them all the way around. So you could never read his book because the book never read like they played it. And I believe music is about the feeling of it. If something feels good, then that's where we are for a moment. Then when we switch to something else, if that's the way we feel, then that's the way we move. So spontaneity is the way to go.
Is that your policy, Michael, when you put something together?
Absolutely. I let the music flow.
Tell us a little bit about some of your most memorable occasions on stage. You told us you played with Grover Washington Jr., of course.
Right. We also had the pleasure of opening up for Regina Bell and Keith Washington at Constitution Hall. We also played out at Lyric Opera House in Baltimore, also with Keith. We also did the Capitol Jazz Fest a few years back. Had the pleasure of meeting Layla Hathaway, Gerald Albright, Ahmad Jamal. Oh man, the list goes on. I mean, we had a great time.
You're listening to Spectrum on 105.9 WJZW, Woodbridge, Washington. In studio with us, Michael Stevens from the Michael Stevens Project, Keith Killgo, founding member of the Blackbyrds, and guitarist and founding member of Quicksilver Messenger Service. Gary Duncan is with us. Our focus, Rock Creek Park and 30 years of doing it in the park. August 26th, featuring the Blackbyrds, Michael Stevens in the house, and Ray Parker Jr. And gentlemen, before we wrap up, again, what are we in store for August 26th as we celebrate 30 years of doing it in the park?
30 years of fun, 30 years that we are still here, and that we have been recognized for bringing attention to Rock Creek Park changed a lot of people's lives, especially when we were in high school. It was, the park of romance and all kinds of different things. But we also grew up in the park, riding our bicycles on Saturday morning to the zoo. Family picnics, outings. People get married in Rock Creek Park. A lot of things have happened there.
Concerts at P Street Beach.
The hair was on P Street Beach, and stuff like that. So, and it's connected to Georgetown, and so it's got a lot of memories, a lot of history, and it's still there. And that's the most important part, that because there's very few green things left, so that it's still there and it's still vibrant, and there's still deer and squirrels and stuff living in there. So we're happy about that.
The National Park Service has done a great job in maintaining it.
Absolutely.
Michael, would you like to add in conclusion why we should be in attendance August 26th for 30 years of doing it in the park, Rock Creek Park?
Well, you're going to hear some great music, not only from the Mike Stevens Project, from the Blackbyrds, and as well as our good friend Ray Parker Jr.
And who'll be with you on stage?
Reginald Boykin, my bass player, Mr. Yvonne Johnson on keys, Mr. Vinton Jones on drums.
And if someone would like to pick up the latest Michael Stevens Project CD, they can do so by doing what?
Reaching my website, www.msp-jazz.com.
And Keith, if they want to pick up any of your work or the Blackbyrds, how can they do so?
CD Baby and www.crosslink.net.
And Gary, if folks would like to pick up Shapeshifter or 3 in the Side, how can they do that?
Just go to quicksilvermessengerservice.com.
What's ahead for Quicksilver Messenger Service?
Well, we're on the road now, and for the first time in about 5 years, and I'm glad to be back. And we're going to be touring the East Coast, going back out to the West Coast for a while, and then going to Europe in the fall, and then once again going to Italy, and if it's still there, in the spring. So just playing music and enjoying my life.
What about with you, Keith?
I'm going to start a project for the I think Alexandria Parks and Rec. We're doing an urban version of the Nutcracker Suite, and I'm writing all the music for it. So it's to a dance theater kind of combination thing, and so I'll be working on that. Actually, the music is due in another week or so, so I got to get cracking on that. But basically, after that, doing some touring on my new CD. We're doing some things in Baltimore. Actually, going to do some things in California and some things in Spain.
You did a great job at the Memorial Day Jazz Festival in Alexandria at Fort Ward Park.
Had a wonderful time there. Matter of fact, the lady who I'm doing this music for was there at the performance.
Michael, what about you? What's ahead for the Michael Stevens Project?
Well, after performing out at Carter Barron, we're hoping a lot of things are going to kick off for us. We're kind of restructuring the group, so we finally brought the musicians that we had in the past back together again. So we're hoping a lot of things are going to pick up after that.
Great things ahead for MSP, for the Blackbyrds, and Quicksilver Messenger Service. And if you want more info, you can log on to smoothjazz1059.com or your website at
quicksilvermessengerservice.com
or
crosslink.net.
msp-jazz.com.
Gary, Michael, Keith, thank you so much for joining us on Spectrum.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tommy.
Great to see you, Gary. Don't make it another decade, okay?
Well, I hope not. You know, that'll be an old man by then.
Well, we'll be here waiting for you, okay?
Okay, man.
Have a great time August 26th. Have a happy trail all the way up to Pennsylvania.
I will.
And to New York. Hopefully you'll be back very soon and keep us posted with an update of everything that's happening in the world of Quicksilver Messenger Service, the Blackbyrds, and the Michael Stevens Project, okay?
Yes, indeed.
All righty.
We'll
All right.
see you later, Tommy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi, this is Gary Duncan from Quicksilver Messenger Service. You're listening to Thomas Grooms Spectrum on Smooth Jazz 105.9 WJZW.
This is WJZW Woodbridge, an ABC radio station.
Smooth jazz.